Higher.
Ew.
Nearer.
Longer. Faster.
Cyflymach.
Gwrando.
Listen.
Engage. Cysylltu.
Cynrychioli.
Represent.
Hi everyone, so welcome to Welsh Athletics webinar autumn series with the next instalment from myself, Brian Jones, NDTC for throws, and Finn Horan, who's NDTC for jumps combined events, and we've got into profiling, programming and planning. Just going to pass you over to Finn now. I hope everyone's well. Finn's going to lead on the start of this webinar. There will be follow-ups after this. So I hope everyone's well and you enjoy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's afternoon for me. Early December, as you can see by Ryan's background decorations. Unfortunately, he's stuck with the same wallpaper that's been for the rest of the lockdown. From my point of view, welcome. So today we're going to talk about, I did a planning webinar in the summer, but we're going to be a bit more specific today, and we're going to get Ryan to go through a couple of examples, seeing as Ryan's kind of one of our top coaches in the country and over a range of age groups and a range of abilities. So we're going to talk about a bit more specific planning and profiling. So the aims of the webinar, we're going to talk about SMART goals again, because they go hand in hand with training and progression. We're going to talk about training principles and components of fitness. Why does training work? We're going to talk about how to profile an athlete and what we need to take into consideration. Ryan likes to plan when he's got his profile. He starts with his profile and he works back from what his SMART goal is and puts the different bits into place. So he's going to talk a bit about that. But people plan in different ways depending on the type of athlete you've got and the level of athlete you've got. We're talking about, which is why we're talking about coaching the person in front of you, and that's the two case studies that I mentioned. We always like to include the athlete development model in our webinars because it kind of provides the framework of the activity that we should be doing. So although we'll talk probably quite specifically about some throws athletes at the kind of age ranges, as you can see, the sport focus, which is about a third of the way down the page, sport focus is multi-activity, multi-event, right up until 14, 15, 16 years old. And then multi-activity still all the way through those. So, and we'll talk about having to bear that in mind, that they might be doing other activities outside of athletics when we're profiling our athletes. So why does training work? Components of fitness. What do we need to improve when we're training? We've got speed, strength, endurance, flexibility and coordination. That's our 5 components of fitness. That's kind of basic GCSE level fitness. And we need all of those if we're going to become a successful athlete. Even if we say a thrower or an endurance runner will need some speed, some strength, and some flexibility and coordination so that they become a better athlete. More coordinated and more flexible might mean they're less likely to get injured. Same with the throws athlete, they still need to be very, very fast throws athletes. They need to have some sort of endurance so that they're able to train for long periods of time and compete for long periods of time. They can't just be a one-trick pony. So we need to address all of these components of fitness when we're training, and then therefore when we're planning. Why does training work? So progressive overload, recovery and adaptation, and specificity. And there's a little diagram there to show you about what we mean by that. So if we just carry on with regular training, our wave would stay the same height forever and ever and ever. If we just did exactly the same, say one training session, 1 hour a week, we would just stay the same. So in order to increase that over time, we progressively overload. So we might add another session during the week, or we might make that session longer or more intense. And then if we sufficiently recover and adapt to that training, then our wave becomes a bit higher. We become a bit fitter, a bit stronger, a bit more flexible. We get better at the skills that we're practicing. So it works across the board of skills, strength, speed, all of those things that we just talked about. And specificity, it's important to train for what you want to compete at or what you want to do, rather than kind of just going completely off topic and developing too much endurance, perhaps if you're a thrower, or too much strength if you're an endurance athlete. So, and then we can see down the bottom, if we don't recover sufficiently or we make the load too high, then we're going to decrease our performance or get injured, or both, which is what we're trying to avoid at all costs. So in order to increase this wave up in an upward fashion, we need to alter either the frequency. So as I said, we need to kind of train twice a week instead of once, which alters the frequency. We need to increase the intensity, so we train harder for that one session a week, or we increase the time, so that 1 hour becomes 2 hours. But importantly, when we're planning and when we're training, we don't increase two of these factors at once. So if we increase the intensity, we also don't put in another session. And if we increase the session to 2 hours, we don't make them 2 harder hours or a harder 2 hours. So we've got to be careful not to increase any more than one of these factors at once over in a training block, 4 to 6 weeks. And in our 4 to 6 week training block, we like to alter the load so that we're not all high volume every single week. We like to have some high volume weeks, but possibly followed by a lower volume week where we still perform the movements and the activities, but we take some of the load away. So we take some of the weight away. If we're lifting weights, we take some of the length of the runs away, or we take some of the intensity away. And over time, the overall load is quite a linear progression, but from week to week, we vary it so that we don't put too much load onto especially young people's bodies. But even experienced athletes, as they get more and more advanced, they might even do 2 hard weeks, 1 easy week, because they've built up that volume over time. So not every week is a hard week. That's important to think about when we're planning as well. So if we've got a goal without a plan is only a dream. There's lots of different types of goals that we need to think about when we're planning. We're very good at our outcome goals. I want to be the champion of this. I want to be Welsh champion. I want to throw, this far, or jump this far, or run this time. We're very good at those, but then we're not so good perhaps at the process goals. How are we going to go about those things? What am I going to do tomorrow that means that next week I'm at this stage and the week after I'm at this stage? So in what Ryan's going to talk about in his case studies, he's going to talk about the overall goal at the end of the year, but then the process goals leading up to that goal that mean that we know we're on target. Because if we're not on target after a month or 2 months, then we're never going to reach that goal. So we might need to readdress and review what we're doing and start again. So those are the different types of goals. Outcome goals, performance goals are kind of our times and our distances, and we can slot them in training so that we know we're on track. But process goals are often mindset goals, and make sure you go training 3 times a week, make sure you do this, make sure you hit the little goals to help you get further along the pathway. Okay, we talk about goals. You've done this in other aspects of life, but in athletics we talk about SMART goals. SMART. And if you've been on coach education courses, we do quite a lot of this, and it's important to make our goals SMART. So the S being specific. Let's put up the answers. And Ryan's going to talk about this in a minute, so I won't linger on it. Measurable, agreed. We talk about in athletics. I know that's a different A in some aspects, but we talk about agreed between the coach and the athlete. Is it realistic, and is there a time limit on it? In the planning process, how do we go about planning? What do we need? What information do we need? Because we can set a goal and work backwards, but then it depends, doesn't it, who we've got. So who have we got to start with? We need an athlete profile, because it's all very well having a goal, but if you haven't got the right type of athlete, then you're never going to reach that goal. So who have we got? What are our goals? What are we going to do? The what tos, what are we going to do in our plan to reach those goals? Then we're going to deliver the plan. Then we're going to record how it goes. We're going to monitor that progress over time. And then we're going to assess how we're doing, not just at the end of the year, but as we go through each block. So a mesocycle, sometimes we talk about, will be a 6 to 8 week block. One session will be your 1 unit, or might be multiple units within that one session. So that's some of the language that we use as well. And the development period probably a bit bigger, over a year. And we go through this whole process. Again, Ryan's going to touch on this, but we plan, then we execute, and then we say, how did that go? And the important bit is that we're very honest about that review process, because we can have a great plan on paper, but if it doesn't work, we need to change it. We need to adapt it so that we can still reach our goal at the end. There's no point just because so-and-so did it, or because I've got it out of Athletics Weekly, it doesn't mean it's a good plan. We need to honestly review it. Okay, and just to finish off before I hand over to Ryan, we're going to talk about building this athlete profile. So there's a number of different things you might do when you're building an athlete profile. You might do subconsciously, but just to kind of give you a bit of an idea of the amount of things that we need to think about. We need to think about the biological age. How old is the athlete? Then, of course, the stage of development in the sport, stage of maturation. So how they might have a biological age, but then what is their kind of development of stage of maturity? What's their training age? How long have they been in the sport? Have they just come from another sport? Have they been in the sport since they were young, and perhaps maybe been through starting blocks if they're lucky enough, although there are probably not many of those that are old enough yet, and been through an actual athlete development program, and they're coming to us now, or are they just coming over from football or rugby? So what's their training age? What's their attitude? What's their personality? There's no point planning something that they're never going to do just because they don't like it. So you've got to bear all these things into consideration. What other sports do they do? What schoolwork have they got on? We try and emphasize, get that schoolwork done first. There's no point being great at sport if you haven't got that kind of knowledge from school to back it up. So if they've got a heavy school program, or they struggle with that schoolwork, there's no point loading 5 days of training on there that they're not going to be able to do. You're just going to add stress to the system. What's their family like? Are they supportive? Can they get to the track? Will the family make sure they're eating right? Are they going to get there on time? Do you need to perhaps find alternative transport for them to get to the track? Are they available for training 3 nights a week, 1 night a week, 2 nights a week? Do they frequently go away for holidays? Do they frequently go and stay with other relatives? So again, no point writing a plan for 52 weeks if you can only actually have them for 20 because they go away for 6 weeks in the summer and they go away for 2 weeks at Easter. You've got to think about their availability as well as your own availability, obviously, but we're thinking about the athlete. It's got to be realistic, and how many weeks have you actually got? How many days? How many training sessions? What physical condition are they in? Are they healthy? Are they ready to get regular illness? Do they miss days of school quite often, or are they in good condition? Training facilities near them, are they able to access good training facilities, gym access, things like that? So again, there's no point writing a plan if you haven't got the facilities. And I know lockdown's given us that extra kind of thing to think about, in that we might not be able to get into the gym or into a sports hall where we can do the exercises we want to in a dry environment or a safe environment. So some things might be not realistic if we had to take them outside onto grass or onto kind of the tennis courts or whatever. And then, as I kind of alluded to before, the diet, the sleep, and other personal issues. We've got to kind of think about those things when we're planning for the athletes. Okay, I'll hand you over to Ryan.
Right, thank you, Finn. Great work. Right, guys, so as Finn has just been through all that great work, and he has an in-depth understanding, my area or the two athlete profiles I'm going to use are two young athletes within my small coaching group. I thought this would be best to see how I sort of plan how they're going to develop and how we can go from there. This is mostly a mesocycle, like Ben said, so 2 to 6 weeks. So we'll probably readjust every 4 to 6 weeks to follow the same program, but we will have an overall goal. So I'd like to explain, obviously, the athlete profile. One is young Michael within my group, 15 years old. He's 6'8" at 15 years old. He throws a discus. He's only been training for 2 years. You know, he has a PB of 45 meters with a 1.5. Then we have some notable notes, and these are important within my planning for Michael. He is an F38 para athlete, so that is that affects his coordination and balance, and obviously with him, it affects his left-hand side. So with everything planning with him is understanding that. And not only is he 15 years old and 6'8" already, so he is just grown very tall at a very young age. You know what I mean? For him, his body understanding, his movement skills are just a little bit late just because of his height. And then obviously we have the F38 para athlete that obviously affects his coordination, but it's not a problem. We just have to take that into account when planning. He's also able-bodied. He's ranked very highly in that. He's got a great work ethic. You know, he turns up to training, he just gets on with it. He listens very well, something I really like. And then he has a good understanding of the event. So for me, he is 15. You know what I mean? He loves his Xbox. He loves other parts of being a 15-year-old, but he does love just watching videos of throwers. You know what I mean? And being with his profile, you know, he has a bright future ahead of him, you know, as long as we plan efficiently. We could just move on to the next one, Finn. Sorry, guys, Finn, as some reason, can you just go on to the next slide? Sorry, this is the problem with one person.
I have.
Sorry, so ignore that. So we have a SMART goal specific to the athlete, okay? So in terms of specific, and Finn has gone through this, so we have preparation and entry of the full throw, technically sequenced in the correct manner, and minor goals within that. So what we're talking about here is entry into that throw. It's a little bit wordy, but it is the preparation and entry of the full throw. If any of you see my discus webinar, I am very focused on the setup of the throw. If we don't have a good setup, the whole throw is just not sequenced and set up correctly. So we have a measurable with the distance I'd like him to throw next year is 47.50. It's agreed, a discussion, and the direction is established, you know, with the athlete for the athlete's understanding. Why are we working on this? If he can understand why he's working on it, he's more likely to buy into it, and something that I can better communicate with him, something he can go away and he can work on those drills and feel happy he's getting somewhere, and to also see an end goal. Realistic, obviously, current personal best just over 45 meters, 45 meters and change. So he has, you know, he has that realistic 47.50. I'd probably say it's a little bit of a short target. It's not really a stretch target. I feel like he'll get that, but it is time bound. So I've said 47.50 by August 31st, 2021, so next season. But we will make technical adjustments at 6 weeks. We will maybe move on to something else to get that 47.50. So I will reassess what I go into in a moment. If he has made those technical adjustments on the preparation entry, then we'll move on to something else that's affected his distance. It might be the fact that he comes out first competition and throws 47.50. We will then reassess, okay? And that is really important. Don't stick to that goal, reassess. Even if you have to bring the goal closer or easier to get to, just to build that confidence in the athlete, you have to be able to adapt, especially in these times with what's going on with the pandemic and athletes not getting access as well as we can. For example, Mike lives in Pembrokeshire. It is a long drive to see me in Cardiff. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to me, okay? So specific, so this is what we're gonna go into. This is a little bit wordy slide, I'm sorry about this, but it is that specific. So with the prepare and entry of the full throw. So this is part of our Welsh Athletics regional development activity where we have those athlete competencies, where we're going to look at how the athlete is moving and if they're hitting those technical points. This is something I like to check and challenge myself. You know, I don't mind speaking to myself and talking to myself when we're looking at Michael and is he hitting these areas, okay? So preparation, the backswing, his position is connected to the left foot grounded and center of mass is distributed. So he's a right-handed thrower. In the backswing, it's very important. He can come very short. He's a young athlete. It's easy for him to feel like he's long just because he's so tall, but actually want to use his height. If he's 6'8", let's use the 6'8". Both arms, shoulder height, full extension. He is a young athlete. He is not physically established yet. His training maturation is a very young age. He needs to work on the physical areas as well as the technical areas. So he does drop his arms when he does get tired. Discus in the backswing until it's behind the right hip, and then left arm inside of the left hip with center of mass. So we really work on the center of mass. Specific to Mike, he is much more comfortable on center of mass over 2 feet, okay? Once we start moving into that preparation and entry into the full throw, and we start moving on to the left side, this is where his balance coordination just does get affected, okay? So this is where we're working on. This is how we're trying to this is how we're trying to get that left foot to work, to have that heel initiate the throw rather than using his upper body. Because it is easier to use the upper body, you feel like you're going quicker, so you throw the upper body. This is what we're working on, and we will consistently work on that until we get it right, okay? So our pedagogy and teaching is we go for excellence. So we do that specific preparation and entry within these technical things until we get it right. And I will, as a coach, I will not move on until we get that right, okay? So that is important. There's no point going back and forth in different technical areas just with a young athlete. I feel that they can get confused, but you also have to revisit it until it becomes autonomous. Sorry guys, Finn is just trying to move me along here, so we're short on time. So entry in terms of that right foot, we take off early while the left foot grounded, trunk in an athletic position. This is where the physical area comes into a little bit later. So we've got that trunk in athletic position. We have the upper body set nicely over the hips, the head upright, the head becomes a rudder. And then got both arms shoulder height, full extension, right foot plantar flexes. If you want to go into any of these technical points, please have a look at the discus webinar. If you go to the next one, Finn. So this is just a photo that come from the previous webinar, just to show what I'm actually looking at, to give you a visual representation. We're looking at sort of numbers letters A, B, and C. So we're looking really at that entry, and this is Goodsys. Great technical model, and something we use with Mike. Okay, so Mike is sort of more of a visual learner, so he will need a lot of demonstration. He will like to look at things like this to exactly understand what he's working on. I can't just give him verbal instruction. He likes to see it in motion, okay? So understand the athlete, and this could we'll come back onto the next one. Is, you know, the athlete training maturation is when we go into the weekly setup in a moment. Is, you know, how long has he been training? What has he done previously? And Mike has played other sports, but not to the extent that he is training right now 2 to 3 times per week in athletics. Athlete conditioning, understanding, and the best teaching method. We touched upon that in terms of visual and verbal, and then other unseen areas to be aware of. So obviously we touched upon it with Mike. There's obviously that we have that F38 para-athlete class there, so we have to be aware that it does affect his coordination. Okay, the next one, Finn. So this is areas for physical development to aid those technical goals. So we've got our technical goals. This is what we're working towards, but it's not only the technical side that is going to reach that goal. So as much as we throw, we need a drill, we need to have specific throws, we need to do some specific medical work, some specific physical prep. So we've got a sort of, and I'll go through these very quickly, is the entry discus wall. So we set back against the wall and we just move over the left. That stops us from breaking at the hips, and we move on to the left side. Same with the entry discus wall. So that is the way we push our right leg around and keep this left arm locked. Around the clock is where we just, at the entry, the start throw, we just move around the clock. So if you think that the athlete is at the back of the discus circle, 12 o'clock to the front, 6 o'clock, and he moves around every sort of 15 minutes, but with the body weight over the left-hand side, working on the technical inside of the right thigh, mass over left side. Then the 180-degree drill, so we go from 12 right through around to 6 o'clock, and then the 360, and we both use D-balls. We use the D-balls, medicine ball with a handle, just allows the athlete to have something to hold up. Okay, again, Mike is physically hasn't done a lot of physical prep, so he needs just to build that strength up there. Then we have some specific throws. So we have some South African with a D ball, South African with a discus, full turn with a D ball, and full turn with a discus. I feel like it's important to do a lot of throws with D balls or other tools, just because it keeps that length and it allows you just to hold it out, allows you to get some more technical focus work in. And then we've got some specific med ball works. We've got chest pass and single leg. So we really just focus on using that single leg area. Chest pass a wall on single leg, left and right. Overhead pass for single, just overhead into a wall. A reactive pass on a wobble board. So Mike will do this on 2 feet on the wobble board at the moment, but you can move it on to one leg, single leg, and then obviously lunge position, med ball pass left and right. So he's in a lunge position. Again, remembering Mike is 6'8". He's not going to be as low as a lot of athletes, and we just have to understand that he's just getting into a comfortable position that he's able to go through the drill. Okay, and then just to touch along a few of the things. So he will train sort of 4 days in the week. But he'll do some sort of a lot of drill based and some body weight training. Okay, he doesn't have access to the gym at the moment, so we'll do some Bulgarian lunges, weight bearing or weighted, and then we'll have squat, body weight weighted, single leg assisted with a squat band, just because he's just not mature enough at the moment to do a single leg squat, so we assist him with bands to allow him to take some of the body weight. Overhead squat, so important for discus throws, and overhead squat is very important for discus throws, and obviously a calf raise single leg. And then with the Sunday, we've got a Zercher reverse lunge just with a broom handle. We've got single leg Romanian deadlift, kettlebell, single leg hip thrust, dumbbell step up, pistol squat, and one of my personal favorite is the dumbbell scale squat, which move side to side. Okay, so all of these are here, and obviously it's hard to understand with just me verbalizing them of what they look like. So there will be a later webinar done by myself or a drop-in Zoom channel where we can go through some of these exercises if needed. Okay, on to the next one. So athlete profile of the athlete number 2 is another one of my young athletes, young Amelia. She's 15 years old. Actually, I've actually just, she's actually not 5'4", she's actually 5'8". So I am sorry, Amelia, I made you a little bit shorter than you actually are. So she's a shot put. She's been training for 3 years. She's got a PB of 12.19 in the glide, and then some notable notes for her at the moment. We are actually moving from a glide to a rotational throw. Okay, so she has a very competitive nature, but she is an overthinker. Okay, so this is something I know about Amelia. She will overthink what instruction I give her. Okay, so that is a good thing and it's a bad thing. Okay, she'll almost neurologically shut herself down because she just overthinks about everything. She just doesn't allow it to happen. Excellent work ethic and great understanding of the event. Okay, so a SMART goal specific to her is obviously we move into that rotational throw. She has a good understanding, just being around the group with other rotational throwers, that she has right foot touchdown of the rotational throw. It needs to be pre-turned. So Amelia really struggles to really have that active right foot, whether it be the glide or the rotational throw. So we're really working on that. The measurable is going to be throw 13 meters. With the rotational technique, we're going to reassess that after 6 weeks. At the moment, she's already surpassing the glides PB on a basic step through rotation. She's just better set up for it. So we're going to reassess that after 6 weeks. Agreed. I have to make the athlete understand why I'm actually switching her from a glide, why she's done it for 3 years and now she's switching. But it's understanding why she's switching is the important part. Realistic current PB is 12.19. 30 meters offers a realistic target, and we will adjust if the goal is reached early. Okay, I'd like to think both of them reach their goals quite early. So again, we go back to this athlete competencies within the technical framework that Finn has done through his jumps and multi-events I've done through the throws. So we've got the right foot fully plantar flexed with toes up inside the right foot, leading into a passing movement. So you'll see a lot of young athletes will come with laces down into the middle. That just is not very efficient, and it stops the right foot moving and the right leg moving underneath them. So we have an airborne left foot takeoff. We accelerate towards the front of the circle, even though it's a rotation throw, it's very linear from the left to left legs. Head control. Amelia is one of those athletes I know, she just moves her head around. That's her rudder. When her head moves, it takes her off balance. She loses that balance and be able to get into throw. Left arm is how to create separation, and separate mass remains over right foot whilst in the middle. Again, this is different to the last one. We're working on the middle out. Okay, we're not working on entry right now. We're still very much working on those half turns into the release. Thank you, Finn. So just to understand where we're at and what we're working on. So this is Michon for the short rotational shot put. So we're really just working on coming in from that position B into C into D into release. Okay, so really working from that. So African in, see how the foot is up, toes are up, left arm is locked, head is loaded, right leg it masses over the right leg. Okay, so that's what we're working on. I like to give the athletes these photos are freely available on the London 2017 biomech study they did. So I like to give these to athletes to understand exactly what we're working on, to understand what positions I'm looking in to get on. Okay, Amelia is a different learner to Michael. We can move on to the next one. Amelia is a different learner to Michael. She can't take a lot of verbal instruction, and she just runs with it. Okay, but I like to give them that visual as well. So Monday, we've got entry shot wall drill. It's the same as the discus, really, for the rotationals. We have half turn with broom handles. We have the South African entry wall with a hold the upper body. We've got line drills with it. I'm just going to make the athletes go South Africans all the way down the line, 100 meters and back. Okay, so they're going to be doing that, and then 360 drills on the right leg. So we do see a lot of 360 drills on the left, but we'll do it on that right leg as well. We've got to learn to move that right leg in the correct sequence. We've got stand throws, fixed feet, half turns, so 1 by 3, so that'll be a forward. So it'll be a half turn, so you move into the forward, you come back, and then you go and throw. That'll just build specific strength through the right leg. And some specific med ball work, chest passing the leg, overhead passing the leg, reactive pass ball med, wobble board, lens position. So they're very similar, but at a young age, we're trying to develop the athlete as well. Although these athletes are throwers, I want to develop them as overall athletes. Okay, athlete first, so they, as well as this, they will do runs, jumps, etc. Okay, and so everything else kind of looks similar. We will have some jump training in for Amelia. Okay, as I mentioned with Michael, different profile. So Amelia can do a few more jumps. She does some standing jumps, she does some 3 bounce, she does a box jump, she does some drop box holds, and she does some single leg box drop holds. Okay. So that's really where the difference is, and you have to have those differences between athletes within your group. Okay, now even though they may be the same age of 15, they have very much different profiles. All right, let's move on to the next one. So, and I know Finn had this plan, review, and do, is that we have those set cycles, we have these SMART goals, but it's very much we need to review them. And we must plan to do them. Okay, so I like to keep video of each of the session. So each week we'll just video 1 session, so I can keep an idea of actually are they making those technical goals. So if I'm coming away from the training session, I can get obviously that technical competency list up and go actually slow it down and go through that video. Is she hitting each of those technical competencies? Is she doing what I wanted to do? Do we need to review it? Is she already done it? Has she not done it? Do we then plan? Do we do something else? Okay. So then we can measure that improvement. I like to give that feedback to the athlete that actually we're improving, and they can see that improvement. Okay. And I know I've spoken a lot about those 4-day training, a lot of exercises. So they will go to email to everyone that views this, or there will be an option to join me on a Zoom call, so we can go through some of those exercises and show some video, so you can get a better understanding of what I'm actually talking about in those exercises. And Finn's great on the physical prep side as well, so we'll be able to help out. So I'll just pass you back over to Finn now. I do thank you for joining me. He's left this little speech here. When it's obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Okay, so I'll just leave you with Finn, and I do thank you for tuning in to our joint webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions for me over this or anything else, please contact me on my Welsh Athletics email. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I enjoyed that. Hopefully what a lot of people can see, even if you're not from a throws background, is that the amount of activity Ryan programs through his athletes that isn't throwing. There's kind of 80–90% of it is drills, is exercises, is physical preparation, and then kind of only a little bit of specific throws, and they're not full throws. It's not just go in the cage and throw and keep throwing and keep throwing. It's very, very specific drills set up, and then very specific throws, and they all align in this golden thread to the SMART goal at the end. So we've got physical preparation goals, we've got skill goals, we've got technical goals that run alongside these progress goals throughout the year in order to reach the target that they want in the season. So that's very important in all events. And you can also see what how Ryan understands his athletes, how in depth he knows their personality. So we go back to the slide that I talked about earlier, in all those different things you've got to consider when you're profiling athletes, and he's kind of he's shown that in massive amounts there, just by his knowledge and of each individual person, and knowing how they will react and knowing how they learn best. He said that Mike might learn better when he sees the pictures or needs to see the videos and needs to understand it. So that's part of our agreed process when we're agreeing goals with athletes. So I won't keep rambling on, but I just thought, even if you're not from a throws background, just that was a great example of what can be in your program other than the event. We put too much of the event in our programming or in our activity. We just turn up at the club, do the event, go home, instead of thinking about what the event needs to actually build to reach the goals we want to reach. Okay, thank you all for joining us. Happy Christmas if we don't see you before. And we will be coming at you with some more activity soon, hopefully physically next year, but we'll see where we are. All the best, stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.